Welcome back, and joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator Murphy, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Let's talk about this extraordinary week on Capitol Hill. You voted no on the government funding bill that could have led to a shutdown. 10 Democrats, led by leader Chuck Schumer, voted to advance the spending package to keep the government open. Leader Schumer took to the floor to defend his decision. I want to play a little bit, get your reaction on the other side.
As bad as the CR is, I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option. A shutdown would allow DOJ to shift into overdrive.
Senator, is Leader Schumer wrong?
So let's pull back for a second. This is not a normal political moment. This is not a normal political fight. What Donald Trump is doing right now is absolutely insidious. He is every single day acting unconstitutionally. He is trying to destroy the rule of law. And for what? To essentially hand our government over to the billionaire class so that they can steal from us. There is a level of corruption happening in this White House that is absolutely unprecedented. And so this, to me, is a moment where we need to be restraining the president's power, not giving him new authorities. And for those of us that voted against this budget bill, part of our worry is that it does give the president new authority to move money around, new authority to begin new programming, cuts some essential services for the poor and the middle class. And while I totally understand my colleagues who didn't want to catapult us into a shutdown, I actually think that the American people would have understood that Republicans have an obligation to negotiate with Democrats. This is the first full-year spending bill since I've been in Congress that was written only by the Republican Party. So, yes, it would have been a risk. I understand the decision that many of my Democratic colleagues made, but I think the American people want us to take risks right now in order to save our democracy.
Senator, based on my conversations with some of your colleagues who voted to keep the government open, they say you just didn't have any leverage. What leverage did Democrats have to extract concessions from Republicans in this moment?
Well, again, this is the first time that a full-year spending bill has passed without it being agreed upon by both parties. So certainly in the past, the minority party has used its leverage in the Senate in order to get a seat at the table. Again, I understand the danger of a shutdown right now. But as we saw just hours after that bill passed the Senate, the president is continuing to act unconstitutionally. He shut down some of our most important programs that protect us abroad, like Radio Free Asia and Radio Free Europe, that were funded and authorized in that spending bill. So by passing the spending bill, it doesn't seem that we have restrained any of the president's lawlessness.
You have spoken forcefully in the past, actually, against shutting down the government. I want to play a little bit of that sound for you. Take a look.
This is just no time to be playing around with people's lives. We need to start acting like adults. We need to start doing the job that we were sent here to do because our nation's security is at stake.
It's hard to explain the ramifications of a shutdown, but they're enormous. Head Start programs won't open. Soldiers won't get paid for defending this country. The consequences are absolutely devastating.
And yet you say Americans would have understood this time. What changed, Senator?
Listen, I don't think Americans would have understood, but they would have understood why we got there. If you are the majority party, you have an obligation to negotiate with the minority. Republicans refused to do that. Again, never before has a spending bill been written by only one party. And at this moment, when the president is acting so unconstitutionally, it just seems like the absolute wrong time to give him these new powers. Listen, I understand that a no vote was a risk, right? But I think the American public right now want us to stand up, Democrats to stand up and take some risks. Every single day, the president is engaging in exceptional tactics, in risk-tolerant behavior. And I don't think you save the republic and save our democracy by playing it straight and maintaining norms when the president is shattering them every single day.
You know, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi broke with Leader Schumer's strategy in an extraordinary moment House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked if he has confidence in Leader Schumer, and he said, next question. He effectively dodged the question multiple times. So let me put this question to you. Do you have confidence in Leader Schumer's leadership?
So Leader Schumer has a very difficult job. I don't envy the job that he has. And the question is really for the members of his Democratic caucus. Are we willing to fight, right? I admit that it would take some risk-tolerant behavior in order to effectively stand up to this president. And so the question really is for my party writ large, are we willing to do the very difficult things necessary to meet this moment?
Do you think that Leader Schumer is the best person to lead your caucus in this moment?
Senator Schumer certainly can lead this caucus.
Is he the best person?
He can lead this caucus, but we need to have a conversation inside the caucus about whether we are willing to stand up to Republicans. Listen, we have options. We could decide to not proceed to legislation as an ordinary course of business. There are big fights ahead of us, like the debt ceiling, like another potential government shutdown in 6 months. So we have opportunities as a caucus to stand up and meet this moment. And I think the American people are demanding that we do that.
Just yes or no before we move on. Do you have confidence in Leader Schumer?
I still support Senator Schumer as leader, but I think the only way that we are going to be effective as a caucus is if we change our tactics, and we have to have a conversation inside our caucus to make sure that we are going to do that.
So let's talk about that. You posted a video explaining your vote, what you called a very difficult moment. Many of your supporters responded online saying you should replace Leader Schumer. Is that something that you would consider? Would you consider that role?
I mean, I don't think anybody's having that conversation right now. What's important is that we meet this moment. And what I'm telling you is that if we continue to observe norms, if we continue to engage in business as usual, this democracy could be gone. I don't think we have a year to save American democracy. I think the way the president is acting, using law enforcement to target dissidents, harassing TV stations and radio stations that criticize him, endorsing political violence, puts our democracy at immediate risk. So if you are a Democrat in the Senate or in the House, you have to start acting with urgency. And that is the conversation that we have to start having inside our caucus.
Our new NBC News poll, as you just saw, shows the Democratic Party at an all-time low approval rating. Why do you think Democrats are failing to connect with Americans at this critical moment of urgency, which you describe?
Well, it's what I just talked about. I mean, I think Americans want the Democratic Party to stand up and fight and to take risks. Listen, I understand that had we gone into a shutdown, even for a handful of days, it would have been difficult. But it would have sent a message that the Democratic Party is not going to be bullied by Donald Trump. We are not going to let them write spending bills unilaterally that cut programs for people we care about, that give the president new and extraordinary power. I think Democrats in this country, but I think the broad middle of the public as well, want to see our party fighting in exceptional ways. That is the conversation that has to happen inside of the Democratic Party, inside our caucus. And if we don't get that right, if we continue to work with Republicans, if we continue to hand Donald Trump more power, we are going to lose our democracy.
All right. Well, Senator Murphy, thank you so much. Please keep us posted on those conversations. Come back soon to update us. Thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.